Hello, welcome to the channel. This video is part 1 of the Austin 16 build. In this video you'll see where I purchased the car from, and basically the strip down to a bare chassis, and then basically a build up to where we are today. So hope you enjoy. Thanks a lot. Here we go then. So this is the car at the premises of where I went and looked at it. This was in December 2020, so mid-December. It was very wet and cold. This is it at a unit that I actually managed to borrow for a couple of days to actually take the car to pieces. This was sort of third week of January. As you can see, like looking around the car, it was just absolutely soaking wet. It had been sat outside for probably about 5 or 6 years, and the sunroof, or the rollback roof, had actually completely collapsed into the car, and the seats were just absolutely disgusting. They were actually growing mushrooms, and they were in quite a state. From this footage here you can see I was lifting the body off. I was hoping to sort of save the car and use the body and repair it, but by the time I started sort of pulling the interior out and realising the seats had actually, there was nothing left. I mean, there was just springs, all the wood was completely rotten, and it wasn't really viable to actually rebuild the car to what it was originally. I mean, much as that had been really nice to do. So yeah, unfortunately we had to make the decision and pull the body off. And ironically, I only really unbolted the front part, the front bulkhead, because everything else had completely rotted away. So everything was just, I cut it into pieces basically to lift it off and make it easier, because it would have just come off as a crumpled mess basically. I did try and save as much of the parts as I could to reuse. I saved some of the door latches and locks and things because I want to use those on the body shell that I'm going to be actually putting on this car. The front wings, they were completely well, I say they were completely rotten. They possibly were salvageable, well the one was, but it would have involved you remaking some new parts, new sections for it and welding them in, and that was not really the style I was going to go down. I mean, ideally I suppose I should have saved them, but I only had a limited time to take this car to pieces. Did keep the grille shell and the lower chin piece. I do intend to put cycle wings on this vehicle of some description. I haven't quite decided which way I'm going with that yet. I'm still mocking the body up just to get something I like, which, as I say, you'll see at the end of this video. Here we're just removing the radiator, which I did have rebuilt in Redditch with a bigger core on it. And this is me, I think, just taking the radiator off, and you'll see the aluminium cooling fan, which I do remove because I'm quite frightened of breaking, because I don't think parts on this are very easily available. I haven't found many parts for this so far. I've had to have a few things made, gaskets and things like that, but thankfully they're able to be laser cut, so that wasn't too bad. So that's just taking that aluminium fan off, and then next I'll be taking the engine off, which has got these really easy to undo engine mounts that are actually mounted in the chassis rails, which you have to unbolt. But as this car is about 80 years old, the bolts have rusted solid and you just can't undo them. So, and it is nearly impossible to get the grinder in, so I did eventually get the grinder in and a hammer and chisel and break the bolts off and get the engine clear. You can see I've kept the original grille shell. All the centre had actually rusted out, so I took that off and put this sort of stainless steel wire in there. I've still got the original headlights, so we'll be using those. I'll take the bonnet off shortly and have a look at it under the bonnet, the engine. But wheels have all been shot blasted and powder coated, and new tyres fitted. I've got new bushes to put into the springs, so everything's going to be nice and solid. The chassis was quite rusty at the back. I had to do a bit of a repair there, just there in front of the wheel. But apart from that, everything was in pretty good order. So again, the back's had new tyres on it. But we've still got the original wheel with this horn in the centre and the indicators. So pedals are in. This firewall is just basically there for mock-up purposes really, but gearbox is in, and yeah, all the gears. Also got the handbrake connected. So that's all in there. Those are all the clocks ready to go back in. So I've actually managed to get a reconditioned speedo for it. The clock on the other side that's original. I think the ammeter is, and the oil pressure is. I had to buy a new ignition switch because that was completely corroded, and I'm putting a water temperature gauge in as opposed to a fuel gauge, but it will have a fuel gauge, but it'll be at the back somewhere here because it's going to have a modern aluminium fuel tank fitted into it. So let's just lift the bonnet on this and have a quick look under the bonnet. Here we are with the bonnet now removed from the car, so we can actually see the engine and see what's gone on under here. The engine has been out, everything has been taken to pieces off it. The crank's been out, the crank's been reground, the conrods have all been re-white metalled. Carburettor I've still got to put a gasket set on. I couldn't actually get the gaskets for the manifold, so I managed to buy some gasket material and had to have these laser cut, so I've now got a full set of manifold gaskets. I've got a new head gasket to go on it, which is not on it yet because I just want to double check I've got all the timing right. Now it's all gone back together. I've got a new set of core plugs to go in the head. So these are all new nuts on top of here and washers. These all need cleaning up because the damp has actually got to it while it's been parked up over the winter. The radiator has all been recored with a thicker core because the original one was completely rotten. Managed to buy this air filter because it didn't come with the original one, but I am going to take this to pieces and clean it out because I'm aware that's quite dirty in there. We've got a flexible pipe here to go on for the exhaust. Another one on the other side. So all the ignition wires are on. These are all this is ready to go to the coil that will be mounted on the bulkhead. I've got to put an oil filter system on it because the original one I can't actually get hold of a filter for it, so I'm going to retrofit a remote oil filter on it, and this is what these pipes are for, to go into that basically. And then there's a return on the other side. So this has all had new points and rotor arm, so it should be good to go. The dynamo's all been tested, same with the cutout box, that's all been rebuilt. We should be ready to run this very soon, so this will be another good project to look out for. Right, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along for more. Thanks a lot.